So the program that we're introducing today is a test and learn and systems-wide evaluation program. And of course, as you know, because you are here and you have been in contact with the center in the past, CHI was created in 2018 to act as a catalyst for evidence-led change in the homeless sector, really to try supporting local and national governments to act on evidence to really reach an end to homelessness. So we are the What Work Center for homelessness in the UK. Importantly, we have a remit across all of the UK and not just exclusively in England. So of course, all of your evaluators, so this is a goal of what we are really trying to achieve, is making sure that we are really starting to use evidence much more effectively to tackle the problems that we have ahead. And in our particular case, that issue is homelessness and rough sleeping. So we already went through the brief introductions of the team, and we wanted to tell you a bit more about the program and a few of the resources that will be available for all of you as we go. And at the end, we also have a few points around how the bid process will go through and how we're going to be managing that. So the Department for Leveling Up Housing and Communities that basically has responsibilities over everything to do with housing and homelessness in England made a really important commitment at the end of 2022 in their Ending Rough Sleeping for Good strategy. At that point, they committed £15 million to improving the evidence base. And basically, that investment is the most substantial investment that we have seen in homelessness research in the UK, but also internationally. The number of trials that this would include is completely unprecedented in homelessness. The program has two components. The first one is a test and learn program, which is the one that we're going to be discussing today in more detail, and that includes resources for 8 evaluations, including funding for new services, as well as funding for the evaluations. Equally exciting is a systems-wide evaluation that will really try to identify opportunities for systems-wide change. And for that, we are collaborating with Gordis Wright and RSM Consulting. So those would not be opportunities that are open for the panel at this point. In terms of test and learn, we are in the launch phase. So we are doing engagement with local authorities and with organizations that might be interested in taking part of all of these different initiatives, and of course, now with evaluators as well for the relevant elements of the program that are applicable to all of you. A few principles. So, of course, we know that the evidence base in homelessness is really limited. And there are many gaps, there are many areas where we feel that additional evidence is really required. And this is a start. So as part of the Test and Learn program, 8 projects were selected after an extensive period of co-creation that CHI did over the last 18 months with DLOC, with local authorities, and with the sector more widely. And after that was concluded, CHI was commissioned by DLOC to run the overall program, including management of the evaluations and also the coordination of all of the services that will need to be set up for the program. Of those 8 projects, I already partnered with 3 evaluators for 3 specific projects, given that they had specific expertise that was relevant for those projects. And for the other 5, they will be selected through competitive processes through the evaluation panel. And those are the ones that we're going to be discussing today in a bit more detail. The funding covers the cost both for the setup of the new services as well as a cost for the evaluations. And as I mentioned already really briefly, we'll be running a really simple bidding process to take part both in the services as well as the evaluations. We'll be having webinars for each of those ideas over the next 4 to 5 weeks, and we'll have dates for those in a second. So this is a portfolio of all of the projects, of the 8 projects, and I wanted to give you a bit of a flavor of each of those today, especially the ones that are going to be commissioned externally. This has all of the details of all of the projects, and this will be available for everyone's perusal after the meeting as well. And here we have the dates to start with the projects. So importantly, the one to keep in mind is one around care levers, which is the one that we're going to be releasing soon. Is on the 2nd of April. We have decided to do it on a staggered way, both to ease your process in case that you might want to put forward more than one application, but of course, also to allow the team to review them in a timely manner and make sure that we can respond to any queries that might come through in the process. So all of those are the dates where we're going to be discussing in more detail both the project for the services and also for the evaluations. And of course, each of them will have extensive documentation where you will have more information on what we expect to see in each of those beats. So to tell you a bit more about the projects, one of them is individual placement and support. This is a really well-known employment program that is focusing on people who have more complex needs. And it's interesting because rather than using a train and then place approach, it really focuses on employing people first and supporting them throughout that employment to remain in their job. This has been used in mental health in the past, and the idea is to bring it into the space of homelessness. In this case, we're going to be working with a partner, a fidelity partner, that is IPS Grow, that we're supporting the scale up of IPS to other populations, and will be supporting the new services being set up for this program as well. In this case, this will be an individual randomized controlled trial, and we're going to be working with a data collection partner that is IFF Research to help us coordinate data collection across those projects that require service and primary data collection. The second one that is of interest is trying to use council data to help prevent homelessness. We know that local authorities have a plethora of really useful data, but in some cases they might not have the capacity or the technical skills and resources to actually make the best use of all of that data. So we have partnered with an organization called Santura that have a piece of software and the technical skills to basically bring together all of the relevant information that a local authority might have and start using that to target much more specific support for those that are identified as being at risk. This also builds on a previous pilot that was done by the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham. We're using the same data platform. They really help to identify people who had council tax arrears as an indicator of economic precarity to then go and tackle and offer a much more proactive level of support. This also will be a randomized controlled trial, but in this case, we're going to be collecting all of the data through the platform that Santura will be putting in place in these local authorities, given the scale at which we expect that this will be operating. The next one is about offering time-limited accommodation to people that usually have restricted eligibility to public funds. We know that people who have either an unknown immigration status or that might have restricted eligibility usually are much more likely to end up sleeping rough. And this tends to be an issue in specific areas of the country where there's a larger population of migrants as well. The idea of this is that it's a complex program that includes at least 4 components. One of them is time-limited accommodation. The second one is an immigration advice. Third one is a link worker to help coordinate all of the local response. And the last one is engagement with the Home Office as a mechanism to accelerate cases and make sure that those can be brought to a close when that is required. This project in specific will be a synthetic control method using data that is available from the department. And of course, all of that detail will be found in the evaluation spec. And the last one that I wanted to mention is a program for care leavers that had been funded by the Department for Leveling Up and the DFE. This is a flexible pot of funding that is coming to an end in April 25, and the department were really keen to understand the effectiveness of this program and how it could be improved in the future. So in this case, the proposed method of evaluation is a retrospective match difference in difference, given that the program has already taken place. And of course, it will include other types of data as well. Sorry, the last one has to do with local connection. So usually people who have a local connection, and by local connection, I mean people who have lived in a specific area for at least 6 months in the last year, or in the last or 2 years in the last 3 years, have a local connection, and as a consequence can be supported by their relevant local authority if they were to be presenting as homeless in that specific area. So the goal of this project is to start opening up the opportunities to support people who don't have a local connection, so they can actually receive support by their local authority. This project is much more exploratory in nature, and it's really about starting to define what that offer would look like, and especially opening up opportunities for reconnection, either in the area where the person has a local connection or in other areas where they might be interested to be reallocated to. So a few other things to note. All of the evaluations will be managed directly by CHI rather than the Department for Leveling Up. All of the prices that you will see in the slides, as well as in all of the evaluation packs, are exclusive of VAT. So if evaluators need to charge VAT on top of those figures, that is perfectly acceptable. We would simply require a VAT appropriate invoice in those cases. DLOC, as the commissioner for this piece of work, will be acting as the data controller, and CHI is a processor, with all of the evaluators acting as sub-processors. Of course, we have the relevant data protection materials in place, and we'll be sharing those with appointed evaluators as well. Just a couple of things that all of you will be familiar with based on your relationships with other work centers. We expect all evaluators to obtain ethical approval within their institutions for the pieces of work that they will be conducting, or going through other appropriate mechanisms to ensure that the ethical approval is granted. All of the outputs will be peer-reviewed, and of course, we'll be including assessments of risk of bias on every single one of them as well. And those will be conducted by independent peer reviewers after the evaluations are concluded. And finally, you won't be surprised to hear that we expect all evaluations to have the three components: impact, process, as well as the economic element. We have also been building over the last few months a set of resources to coordinate across the whole program, as well as assembling a really interesting group of advisors that can help us push forward specific projects, as well as coordinate input across the whole program. So the expert advisor group is an international group of experts in homelessness and housing, and include people like Pete Mackey, who I know is in this group as well, or Susan Fitzpatrick, and we'll make available a simple list of people who are members of the panel. Ways in which you can interact with them, for example, can be as expert reviewers for specific pieces of work, and that can be coordinated through CHI and the contact that we have with expert advisors. Second resource that will be available is a lived experience network that's coordinated by my colleague Jen Kiernan. This is a group of people who have lived experiences of homelessness and can help us to think through any aspects to do with the design, as well as the dissemination of all of the pieces of work that we are going to be commissioning and working over the next couple of years. To give you an example, yesterday we had a really helpful session to start helping us refine the whole approach to data collection across the test and learn program. The third one is more on the technical side. We have been preparing different types of guidance, from protocol templates, statistical analysis guidance, IP guidance, one on economic evaluation. And the last one is a series of instruments that are commonly used in previous research in homelessness, so that evaluators can use it as a starting point when choosing instruments and other tools for your own pieces of work. And of course, we would really welcome any suggestions or improvements that you could make, so that we can learn even more across the program as a whole. I'll stop there for any initial reactions before handing over to my colleague to discuss the grant making. And we'll have quite a lot more time for questions at the end. Any initial questions? I guess that was incredibly clear. So Graham, over to you. I'll share my screen again.
Thank you. Or maybe everyone was just so excited about the grant making process, they just didn't want to hold up any longer. I'll briefly cover the way that we intend to make grants through. This is the first time the Centre is doing this, so we obviously have the funding from DLUC, and we will distribute that through a grant making process over the next month and a half. We've highlighted on the screen, and I appreciate you'll be able to read this later at your leisure about the process by which we'll go through. So we're starting this on the 2nd of April for the care leavers evaluation, as Graham was saying, and with that we'll publish the full specification, the evaluation criteria, the social value requirement, then the contract documents, as well as the application form. We'll then open that process for 4 weeks. So we're asking people to make the application within 4 weeks, and then we'll close that. We'll send an email when we launch it with the full address of the Flex Grant system that we're using. And I'll go and show you that in the next slide in a second. If we just go back, sorry, thank you. The evaluations will be undertaken by the evidence leads, the evaluations of your bids, and they'll be moderated by Guillermo. We'll then make a recommendation to the Grants and Evaluations Committee of CHI. So that's a new committee we're standing up for this process, chaired by one of our trustees, James Turner. And we'll also have representatives from DLUC and other trustees on the committee. We'll then communicate that decisions and feedback to you all for organisations that place the bid. And then as a final check that we need, just to highlight this, that as part of our contract with DLUC, is that they have final sign off of onboarding any subcontractors. That's mostly around insolvency risk and the like. So it's not that they get a final say on who's the best organisation. It's just that they're dealing with organisations who are eventually sounded not going to reputationally damage DLUC. And then, so once that's all done, we can move forward with contract signing and get a mobilisation plan in place for getting the projects underway. So I thought I'd just quickly show you FlexiGrant, if I can say the old next slide, please. So when we give you the address, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see our register icon. If you click on that and you go through the traditional registration process we'll be familiar with. So if you go to the next slide, Guillermo, you put in your details, and then it will send you a one-time password, and you can click on the link, and then you can log in normally. You go on to the next slide again. Sorry, I'll be saying that a few times. There you go, a successful message. And then, so once you're able to log in, you can then click on that button that says Start an Application and go to Available Grants. So at that stage, you will see the grants that we have. And if you go on to the next slide, you'll see the one that we've been preparing for the Test and Learn Care Leavers evaluation. That's the one that we're expecting you guys to click on. There'll also be other ones throughout the time that are for service delivery partners or for organisations that express an interest about having a service delivered in their area. So those ones are aimed at our third sector colleagues as well as local authorities. Once you click that button, the important things to take note of are the links that I've highlighted there. So that's the head contract. So that's the contract between CHI and DLUC, and a lot of the conditions that you'll see in the contract between yourselves and CHI are because of what's in the head agreement that we have with DLUC. So a lot of the terms and conditions we've had to waterfall down into that subcontract. So just to be open with everyone, we put it there so you can see it. And there'll also be a document which comes from the government that gives you definitions of the terms used as well. There's a template subcontractor agreement. So that's the agreement between ourselves and organizations that will be undertaking the evaluations. And there's also our information security policy, which is referred to in the contract as well. Okay, so you can download those and review them at your leisure. You go into the next screen, which will look like this one. And probably the most important document here is the evaluation brief, which is highlighted in red on the screen. If there are any questions throughout this process, once we go into this phase, if you can please email the programs@homelessnessimpact.org email address, and we will help you if it's around the technical thing. If it's around the specification, there will be an FAQ page we open up here, so we will respond via an FAQ page on the portal as well. And that email will be monitored by Rebecca, myself, and Ella, and we'll liaise with the team about getting responses through. On to the next slide. So we're trying to go for a simplest process as possible. We don't want to make this burdensome on any organisation placing bids. This is about getting those evaluations done. But this is the information we will be looking for. So your organisation and contact details, because we know all of the organisations in this room, we have uploaded your details there already, so you can just select from the list, as well as put your new contact details in. The partnerships and areas of work is mostly focused on service delivery organisations, so we know where they're going to operate. As Graham was saying, these bids are open for anywhere in England, so to be clear that the evaluations could be anywhere in England as well, any local authority. I check that there's been executive sign-off for the bids, and that's predominantly aimed at our voluntary sector and LA organisations, but we need that for yourselves as well. Under number 4, there's project type. So that's where there'll be the questions that we're asking to test your ability to undertake the evaluations. And we'll go into those a second. There's a conflict of interest check as well. So this is about, we may have conflicts of interest with organizations, and organizations may have that with DLUC ourselves. So how are we mitigating those risks? That's that section is to complete. And finally, there's a budget section, as you would expect. There's a couple of headings in there about staff costs or equipment costs and the like. I will flag as well that we've had to put the budget in as a financial year starting in July. That's because that's the way that the centre's financial year runs. And just if you wonder why it's a bit different from the financial year. Sorry, if that made sense. Next slide, please. So once you've completed all the sections and the system recognises that you've put an answer in for every mandatory section, you'll get a box at the top of your screen that looks like this, where you can click on to submit the application, and then a message at the bottom there to say that it's been successfully submitted. If you go on to the next screen, when you log back in, that's what it will look like. So that will be your confirmation, just in case you're worried about whether it's been submitted or not. On to the next slide. So what to expect in the evaluation specification. So as Graham talked about, there'll be quite a lot of information that we've been preparing uploaded onto Plexigrant. And there will be a specific document that we're calling the evaluation brief or evaluation specification that will tell you the type of evaluation, the scale of service delivery that we're expecting, the timeline for the project dates, an indicative budget, what social value commitments we're expecting organisations who bid to undertake, the intervention description, evaluation design, and finally a timeline as well. I just wanted to touch on the social value as well, because this is a bit different. And if Gilman goes on to the next slide. So as part of the consortium's bid to DLUC, which CHI led, and in common with any other public contract, there is a social value commitment. And as most of the money being spent is not actually with CHI, it's through delivery partners and evaluators such as yourselves, we are trickling down those social value commitments across the contracts. So we've come up with a way of a ratio depending on the amount of money that we expect each evaluation or service delivery partner to be receiving. So there's a commitment of 3 days per £100,000 of funding received for volunteering, professional developments for people from disadvantaged background, and also lived experience paid opportunities. And we're expecting those to be undertaken in line with CHI guidance about how to pay people who have lived experience of homelessness. And again, more detail of that will be on the screen. If you go on to the next slide, I think that's evaluation questions. So probably that's not quite big enough writing for everyone to see, but we will send that around in the pack. And these are the questions that we will use to test organisations' ability to undertake the research. So hopefully that's helpful in getting yourselves prepared for the next steps. And there's timelines. So as we were saying, on the 2nd of April, we'll send an email around with a link to register on FlexiGrant. And that care leavers evaluation that you saw a few slides ago will be live and ready to go. It'll be open for 4 weeks, and then we will score the bids and make the recommendations to the Grants Evaluation Committee. We'll get the formal sign-off from DLUC after that, and we'll be ready to start working with our service delivery partners to evaluate these exciting projects. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So that was everything we wanted to show you at this point. So we can open up for questions, and we'll send a copy of the slides as well as other materials early next week. Stephen.
Hello there. Thanks, Guillermo. Thanks, Graham. That was all very clear. Just one question for you, Graham. Just on assessing the bids, are you going to be using some sort of weighting criteria? Weighting between costs, quality, track record, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we're not waiting on price. So we will ask you a question about value for money instead. And there will be those questions that I kind of quickly had up on the screen there, which I'm sure you want to read more. Yeah, they will have weightings attached to them as well. And we'll also have our scoring matrix available. So it'll be a 0 to 4 scoring matrix that you'll be able to see.
That was very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess that is.
Sorry, could I ask a question, Guillermo? Sorry, I'm struggling to find the icon to put up. This is for Graham. The FlexiGrant system. Then, I mean, is it? How does it work with when you're putting in kind of partnership bids? Say if you have one organisation doing the impact analysis and one doing the IPE, something like that.
Yeah. So it can allow partnership bids. We'd ask that one organisation identifies as the lead organisation, and you can just put the details of the other organisation in that. I think it's the section 1. You can download all the questions from the website as well and work on it off the system itself, and then upload it at the end if you want. So it allows you to put in partnership bids.
Okay. And do the partners all have to be on the evaluation panel?
No, Richard. So given that you are through Westminster, that would be sufficient. If, for example, you want to be working with someone on the IP or in specific elements, you can include that in the section discussing the team. But given that you have already been part of a panel, that's enough.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Alex.
Hi there. Sorry, maybe I missed it because I think you did mention about prices, but will you give a specified budget to work towards? Okay. Great.
Yeah, we'll send that out. I believe it was in one of the slides that Guillermo shared. There was a big table earlier on with all the projects. I again appreciate it was quite hard to read that quickly. So that'll be in the slides we share after the meeting.
Great. It's really helpful. Thanks.
And as I mentioned on that, that's a budget exclusive of VAT. If you need to add VAT on top of that, that's not a problem.
But the price that gets taken into account is the without the VAT, right? So it's
Yes.
comparable. Yeah. Great.
Anyone else? I guess that is a no this time. We'll send the slides, and as I mentioned, we are preparing a whole pack of resources for evaluators. We will also send towards next week. And if you have any questions in the meantime, do let us know. But the webinars are probably the next phase where you can hear a lot more about each of the projects. So do encourage you to go to all of those or the ones that you feel are appropriate for your interest as well. Excellent. Well, in that case, looking forward to working with many of you, either on these or in future opportunities, and hope that you have a really good Friday.
Many thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.